This BuzzFeed story is getting a lot of buzz, pun intended, and it's about Michael Cohen he's claiming, reportedly, that Michael Cohen's claiming as a president's attorney, he was instructed to lie to Congress after the president became president about the Moscow Tower project. What's your reaction to that?
This is according to BuzzFeed, by the way.
Listen, I agree with Rudy Giuliani. Anybody who would believe Michael Cohen, Rudy would like to meet with you, offer you a chance to buy the Brooklyn Bridge. This is an absurdity. Look, the news media will take any possible negative about Trump and maximize it, whether it's true or not, because it fits their bias and the degree to which they dislike Trump. But this is an absurdity. I mean, can you imagine any president of the United States being dumb enough to say to somebody, I'd like you to go over now and lie to Congress? It's crazy, and only the modern liberal media would even give it any credit.
Well, we'll find out what the law enforcement officials say. They say have two former law enforcement officials that can verify. They say there are text messages and emails. That would change it if that was true, right?
Well, text messages from who?
Right. And who are these law enforcement people?
Is it from Trump, or is it Cohen being wildly delusional?
And Newt, when you look, this is from BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed, you know, let's hop in the Wayback Machine. BuzzFeed is who actually published the unverified dossier in its entirety, I believe.
Sure, but that's what BuzzFeed does. I mean, BuzzFeed is the equivalent of those tabloids you buy at the grocery store on the way out that introduce you to Martians and tell you the story of 3 stars who had anguished lives that you never knew about. But I mean, to take BuzzFeed seriously,
I got to read about that.
I mean, to take BuzzFeed seriously is a sign of how desperate we are for news.
So you're not denying that, or you don't doubt that Michael Cohen said this to these investigators, but whether or not it's true is what you're doubting, right?
Michael Cohen was interviewed for 70 hours. I mean, in 70 hours' time, he could have said anything. Because he was trying to please the investigators. Right. You know, he was desperately trying to avoid jail. So I think he would have said, if you told him the sky is orange and the earth is purple, he'd have said, yes, sir, that's exactly right. I've always thought that myself.
If there is paperwork to back up what he says and other sources to back up what he says, what is the degree of trouble the president would be in?
Look what you just did. You now have me out talking about a hypothetical of whether or not the president might be in trouble if a nutcake who's routinely lying might have, in fact, what kind of paperwork? Paperwork from Trump or paperwork from Cohen? Well, paperwork from Cohen is as useless as Cohen's own words.
Well, you know what's interesting about this story, you know, BuzzFeed's hanging it on these 2 unnamed law enforcement personnel. Apparently the reporter never actually saw with his own 2 eyes, according to what he told another network this morning, never saw that material himself. So he's taking it on whoever he talked to as, yep, I'm telling you the truth, buddy, this is it.
But look, I don't blame BuzzFeed. Look at the New York Times does this all the time. The New York Times had a story last week about Trump was a Russian agent, is the huge headline. When you get to paragraph 9, they say, you know, there's actually no factual evidence of any kind that this is true. But they managed to get a big headline and a long story, all of it from unnamed FBI sources. So if the New York Times can take trivia and trash and turn it into a page-1 story, why can't BuzzFeed? So I mean, BuzzFeed's just in the great tradition of the New York Times.
Oh, I don't think the FBI would ever do that.
Well, hey, Newt, in particular, yesterday was one of the great political jiu-jitsu moves I've ever seen, where the president 2 days ago was caught by surprise, perhaps, and went silent when he was basically disinvited to give the State of the Union address. The president didn't respond. When he got word, according to the White House, that they were about to take off on a military aircraft to go to what they thought was Egypt, Brussels, and then Afghanistan, he immediately turned the bus around and stopped the plane and said, come back and negotiate. What do you first characterize where this fits in the history of this country?
Well, look, we have never seen the level of hostility between the Speaker of the House and a president that we have with Nancy Pelosi and President Trump. I mean, Nancy Pelosi has gone out of her way to prove that she is his mortal enemy, that if she can destroy his presidency, she will, that she will not. When he said to you the other day, if I give you everything you want, would you at least agree over the next 30 days that we could solve the wall on the southern border? And she said no. So she's saying, you can give me everything I want. I'm still not giving you anything. Now, Then she decides on her own, and by the way, I dare her to put this up to a vote of the House because I think her own party will repudiate her. But she decides she's going to postpone the State of the Union, which she thinks shows she's tough. So the president comes back and says, you want tough? I'll give you tough. You're not going to go out, you're not flying a military airplane.
Right.
Now, I also think he had a good point. Why is she leaving the U.S. for 7 days while federal employees are not being paid? Why is she not sitting in Washington getting her job done, finding a compromise? And I thought from the president's side, it was a home run for him to do the way he did, and send her the note that said, of course you can go commercial, but frankly, you ought to stay here and negotiate.
Right. Do you think he was doing that out of retaliation, or do you think that he canceled, his trip to Davos, or his administration's trip to Davos, he canceled?
Oh, come on.
So is it retaliation, or is it a little bit of both?
I've written 2 books about Trump, and I've known him a long time and watched him carefully. I don't know anybody who is more predictable at counterpunching. You hit Donald Trump, he picks up a large log, slams you across the head, and says, see, you made me irritated. And I think she punched him, and he was looking for an opportunity to punch her back. And I think, from everything, in fact, I was watching your show earlier today where you had a woman on who was saying, I was so proud of him for canceling her plane. Right. I mean, she handed him a huge softball and said, please knock it out of the park.
Newt, when you were Speaker, would you have ever suggested to Bill Clinton, hey, don't do that, let's postpone the State of the Union because this just isn't going right, the government shut down, can't protect you?
Look, even in the worst periods, which included, obviously, the whole impeachment process, he and I could always talk. I mean, partly, I think, we're both sort of graduate students. We like policy, we like ideas, we babble, we babbled with each other. So even when we were fighting, we were talking. Nancy Pelosi is not like that. Nancy Pelosi is a very tough machine politician. She has no interest in having a friendly conversation with Donald Trump. And Trump's a guy he's very happy to talk to you. You want to pick a fight with him? I mean, I guarantee you he's going to spend part of every day from here on out finding a way to cause her pain.
She's an operator. She's not a deep thinker.
Well, but she's a very people shouldn't underestimate her. She is a very effective, very tough operator, and the president is going to have to break her power in order to win.
Let's see what happens. We're in a standoff.
Newt Gingrich, thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
Take care.
I got to tell you, 4 months ago in October of last year, I witnessed the absolute confrontation and violence that happened in this very spot where I'm standing. The very last thing I thought I would find this morning when I came here with a new caravan was the door to be wide open because the new Mexican president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, said that he would be forceful on this border against illegal immigration, but yet offer legal temporary status to workers. This is the bridge. Let me orient you. At 4:15 a.m., I crossed with a group of 1,000 migrants from the Guatemala side, which is in that direction, across this bridge, where back in October we saw the confrontation along this bridge with thousands of migrants. And we walked with this group all the way across through this entry right here, this portal, and a gate that is now locked was wide open. There was no lock on it whatsoever, and they all walked onto the streets of Mexico. I believe we have the photos. You can see I took a before and after photo. Our producer Chris got the gates opened and then closed so you can see how 1,000 caravan migrants from Honduras, Guatemala, and Salvador entered freely into Mexico without a single Mexican police officer or immigration official standing in their way. Still to this hour, we do not have any Mexican police or immigration officials trying to enforce any sort of bridge security. We did talk off camera to an official that told us that they just wanted to, quote, not confront the migrants and wanted them to feel welcomed and not threatened. But again, a very, very big contrast to what we saw in October from today, particularly when the message all along from the Mexican government, the new administration, was they're going to be forceful on illegal crossing. They said they were posting federal police at the 12 ports of entry along the Mexican-Guatemala border and somewhere all along the 370 illegal crossings that they know of. But here's the deal. At the ground zero, main one, you see people riding a bike past me going in. It's wide open. Now, there is a lock. So the people coming across now are going to have to queue up to the Mexican officials. But right now, there's 1,000 migrants that freely walked into Mexico early this hour, and we don't know whether they were let in freely or whether migrants broke that lock.
Good question. Griff, just out of curiosity, you see the gate there with the lock. How far does the wall extend? Does it go 20 feet? Does it go 20 miles? Is it easy to, if the gate's there, they can go around it?
Great question. It's just that one gate in its buildings in part of Ciudad Hidalgo. And so once we saw that gate get locked, we witnessed a handful of caravan migrants who were a little bit late climbing over the areas around that fence and still going in because there was no police presence there. I am very aggressively trying to seek an official comment from Mexican officials here as to whether they intentionally opened that gate or whether migrants broke it. But either way, it's the same result. Very little to absolutely nothing was done to stop them from coming in. And here's the thing. Do the numbers game. We know there is thousands more migrants coming from at least 2 more caravans, one from El Salvador, another from Honduras, on its way. So we'll find out this morning, perhaps later this weekend, how they will be dealt with. One thing's for sure, no show of force on this bridge right now.
All right, Griff, thanks so much.